Look, I know what you're thinking. A town crier? Really? Trust me, friend, if you told me 6 months ago I'd be paying a man in a feathered cap to bellow property prices at traffic, I'd have checked you for fever. But this isn't my fault. This is the fault of the Hillcrest Planned Residential Community Council. Specifically, their draconian, freshly minted, and entirely sign-averse bylaw, Section 4B, Aesthetics and Ocular Harmony. I was, for all intents and purposes, the perfect resident. My lawn was a pristine, HOA-mandated shade of emerald green. My shutters were the approved colonial seafoam. I even used the recommended and criminally expensive brand of moss killer. But perfection, as I discovered, is just a temporary state of not being fined. The inciting incident, the little spark that lit the whole absurd bonfire, was a job offer. A big one. The kind where the salary is 7 figures and the city is 1,000 miles away. I had 6 weeks to move. 6 weeks to liquidate a 4-bedroom colonial in a neighborhood that apparently valued aesthetic compliance over the actual functioning of the free market. My first act, naturally, was to call a realtor. My second act was to put up a for sale sign. It wasn't one of those flimsy plastic things either. This was a tasteful sign. Bronze frame, subtly illuminated, the kind that screamed, "I am expensive, but I know how to behave." It stood on my perfectly manicured lawn, right next to the lamppost, looking dignified and professional. It stood there for exactly 47 minutes. That's when Brenda arrived. Brenda is the HOA vice president, and she operates entirely by silent electric golf cart. She doesn't walk, she glides, like an angry polyester-clad phantom of regulation. She pulled up silently, stopping exactly 6 inches from my prize-winning azalea bush. "Leo!" she chirped, the sound somehow both cheerful and utterly menacing. I stepped off the porch. "Brenda, beautiful day for tyranny, isn't it?" She ignored my snark. Brenda always ignores snark. She lives in a world where sarcasm is merely an unapproved font choice. "You know Section 4B, she said, gesturing vaguely at the tasteful sign as if it were an active biohazard. "That sign violates ocular harmony. It's visually disruptive." Ocular harmony. Seriously, who writes this stuff? Sounds like a cult or an off-brand eye drop. I swear the only ocular harmony Brenda has ever achieved is the perfect shade match between her golf cart and her beige linen pantsuit. "It's a sign, Brenda," I stated, trying to keep my voice low and level. "It's how people know I'm moving. You want me to sell the house, right? Get new dues payers? Don't you want to stop sending me your annual landscape infraction letter?" "The community newsletter is sufficient," she replied, folding her arms. "Prospective buyers should be forced to demonstrate dedication to the community by reading the bi-monthly, 12-page, single-spaced PDF of rules and regulations. This, Leo, is a shortcut. And shortcuts," she paused for dramatic effect, "disrupt the ecosystem of engagement." It's a piece of metal, Brenda. It's not disrupting the ecosystem of engagement. It's disrupting your afternoon. "You have until 5 p.m., she continued, looking at her perfectly sterile watch. "Or the fine is $500 per diem. And you know we have eyes everywhere." She didn't wait for a reply, just reversed her silent little golf cart and glided away, leaving me staring at my bronze, tasteful, $500 a day offending sign. I yanked the sign out of the ground. I paid the first $500 fine that evening, just to prove I could. I figured, fine, I'll fight on their ground. I spent the next 4 hours with the full municipal code, the HOA bylaws, and 3 stiff bourbons, staring at the pages until my actual ocular harmony was thoroughly disrupted. The ban was absolute, on physical, non-moving signage of a commercial nature. No banners, no flags, no yard signs. They had covered every contingency for paper, plastic, and metal. But the law was silent on human announcements. And that night, after the third bourbon and one very dry legal statute review, it hit me. They banned the sign, they didn't ban the sound. And that, my friends, is how you accidentally invent an extremely niche, very expensive, and utterly absurd method of real estate advertising. It was the most passive-aggressive real estate strategy in American history, and I was going to be the founding father. I was going to hire a town crier. My original plan was simple. Hire a college kid, give him a megaphone, pay him $20 an hour, and tell him to shout my address for 30 minutes. But that felt tacky, and probably illegal under some overlooked public address system ordinance. This needed to be different. It needed to be theatrical. It needed to be legally unassailable and utterly, irrevocably ridiculous. I posted the ad on the internet, throwing professionalism out the window. Wanted, professional crier, bellowing enthusiast, must possess strong lungs, theatrical flair, and an impressive Renaissance fair wardrobe. Full-time, highly visible, potentially hostile environment. Oh yes. The applicants were a disaster. First, there was Chad, who showed up in a t-shirt that said, "I'm with Stupid," and just kept whispering, "For sale, for sale, quietly for sale." When I asked him to project, he said, "I don't do loud. It's bad for the aura." Next. Then came the mime, who spent a confusing 5 minutes trapped inside an invisible box that was clearly my house. He silently pantomimed the square footage, a brilliant artist perhaps, but entirely ineffective against Brenda. Finally, there was Percival. Percival Percy O'Malley arrived precisely on time. Not just on time, but with a flair. He wasn't using a car, he walked. And when he walked, his velvet breeches swished with an intimidating authority. He was tall, thin, and wore the kind of feathered cap that looked like it had survived 3 separate duels. He didn't knock. He simply opened the door, stepped inside, and bellowed a greeting. "Good day, Master Maxwell. I perceive your distress. An unjust silence imposed upon the free exchange of property. I am Percy, and my lungs are instruments of liberty." I flinched, holding my coffee mug tightly. The sound rattled the windows I'd just had professionally cleaned. I swear, the drywall inhaled. "Okay, Percy," I said, trying to sound like I wasn't interviewing a lunatic. "Dial it down. We're in my living room. I value volume, but not window-shattering volume. Please, have a seat." Percy refused the chair. He stood, hands clasped behind his back, rocking slightly on his heels. He viewed the concept of sitting as beneath his station. "Your predicament, sir, is one worthy of epic verse. To muzzle the natural voice of commerce, a tragedy. What is your desired outcome precisely? I require clarity before I commit the full force of my vocal cords." "The outcome is simple," I explained, gesturing toward the street. "I need you to stand on the public sidewalk near the corner of Spruce and Elm every day at 5 p.m. for the next 2 weeks. I need you to announce the address, the price, and a single appealing fact about the property. That's it. Daily, at 5 p.m., for maximum traffic exposure." Percy's expression darkened. It was the most severe look I'd ever seen directed at me, and I once told a focus group their ideas were terrible. "Preposterous," he declared, his voice dropping to a theatrical yet still booming baritone. "I shall not reduce this grand endeavor to a mere digital recording. A simple announcement? Nay, it must be poetry, it must be performance. I shall require a bell, a loud one, and perhaps a very small drum." "No drum, Percy. Absolutely no drums. The bell I can sanction. The bell is traditional. The drum crosses a line into starting a parade without a permit territory." "A bell of brass, then, and a voice that cuts through the commuter din like a hot knife through butter. Agreed?" "Agreed," I sighed, already mentally adding a 0 to his weekly retainer. "The main rule is this. You must stay on public property. The sidewalk, the street easement, never my lawn. If you touch my lawn, Brenda will vaporize you." Percy nodded sagely. "I grasp the geopolitical landscape of the neighborhood, Master Maxwell. I am merely a purveyor of necessary information, a vessel of truth. I am protected by the sacred tenets of the First Amendment, and my right to free speech shall not be infringed by any small-minded, beige-panted tribunal." I loved him instantly. I tried to give Percy a simple script. 412 Spruce Avenue, $875,000, granite countertops. He returned the next day with a 4-stanza, iambic pentameter epic about the house's granite and porcelain majesty. I told him, "Keep it under 30 seconds, Percy. It's not an auction, it's an announcement," I later told my realtor. He looked at me like I just insulted the Magna Carta. The final script was a beautiful, terrible compromise. It started with the traditional cry, but Percy insisted on including the entire list of stainless steel appliances, recited with the passionate cadence of a Shakespearean actor listing grievances against the monarchy. I knew right then, this whole thing was either going to land me in jail or sell my house by the end of the week. Either way, it was going to be memorable. The first day of the Town Crier real estate gambit, D-Day, as I secretly called it, was a tense, almost religious experience. It was 4:55 p.m. I was hiding on my porch, pretending to water an especially robust fern, while discreetly recording the sidewalk with my phone. The neighborhood was in its usual pre-dinner stillness, sprinklers misting, birds chirping their suburban soundtrack, the distant hum of an expensive vacuum cleaner. Then, at 5:00 p.m. precisely, the sound arrived. It wasn't a chime. It wasn't a polite ding. It was the deafening, brassy clang of a church bell that had somehow shrunk to a handheld size, wielded by a man with the upper body strength of a lumberjack. The sound didn't just carry. It traveled through the air, reverberated off the perfectly maintained brick facades, and seemingly echoed off the stratosphere. Percy, standing precisely 1 foot onto the public easement, struck a theatrical pose. He took a massive, chest-expanding breath that looked like it might rip the seams of his vest. Then he bellowed, hear ye, let it be known, in this most exclusive of locales, a grand residence, 4-bed and 2-bath, standeth ready for purchase. I speak of 412 Spruce Avenue. The kitchen is a monument to modern cuisine, featuring the finest stainless steel. I swear I saw a squirrel drop its acorn. A dog down the street started howling the saddest, most resonant howl of its life. My neighbor, Mr. Henderson, who was meticulously washing his Porsche, dropped his sponge and just stood there, staring at Percy like he was witnessing the second coming of the colonial era. Percy took his dramatic pause, ringing the bell 4 times with ear-splitting dedication. Now, and for a limited time, available for the sum of $875,000. Oh yes, and may the buyer be blessed with low interest rates. Oh yes. He finished with a flourish, taking a theatrical, deeply sincere bow, completely oblivious to the sudden chaos he had wrought. He looked magnificent. He looked insane. Within 10 minutes, and I clocked it, the first manifestation of authority arrived. Not 1, but 2 police cars. Unit 704 and another unmarked sedan. Out stepped Officer Davis, a man whose resting expression suggested he'd just bitten into a very sour pickle, and Officer Rodriguez, who looked utterly exhausted by life, the universe, and this entire neighborhood. Officer Davis marched straight toward Percy, who was now peacefully folding up his little stand. "Sir, we've received multiple complaints regarding disturbing the peace. Noise ordinance," Davis stated, his voice flat and official. I stepped out from behind the fern, adopting my best responsible homeowner stance. "Officer, I understand, but he's exercising his freedom of speech on public property." Davis pivoted to me instantly. "You're the property owner?" "Leo Maxwell, yes. Officer, my representative here is merely announcing a commercial transaction. We checked the municipal code. The noise ordinance only applies after 10 p.m. It's 5:10 p.m. We also tested the decibel limit. He's loud, yes, but not technically illegal. We made sure." Officer Rodriguez, meanwhile, was looking at Percy, who was adjusting his cap and giving him a small, respectful nod. "A town crier, huh?" Rodriguez muttered, sounding less like an officer of the law and more like a weary museum docent. "That's new? What exactly is he crying?" Percy, noticing the attention, snatched up his bell and rang it, not a full bellow, but a sharp, startling clang. "I am crying the truth of the market, officer. I am announcing the availability of 412 Spruce Avenue. Free men must know where they may dwell." Officer Davis rubbed his temples, a clear sign I was winning. "Look, Maxwell, the complaints aren't just about decibels. They're about the nature of the noise. It's harassment. We have a specific complaint from Mrs. Higgins saying the performance gave her parakeet an anxiety attack." "With respect, officer," I countered, keeping my tone polite but firm. "My town crier is providing a public service. They banned my sign, which is the universally accepted polite way to sell a house. So, I hired the loudest, most verbose human billboard I could find. Is there a statute in Hillcrest against announcing property sales while wearing colonial dress? If there is, I'd love to see it, because I think we just stumbled into a major First Amendment case." Davis glared at me, his eyes narrowed. "Don't try to lecture me on constitutional law, Mr. Maxwell." "Not lecturing, officer. Just clarifying. He's not soliciting. He's not selling goods. He's not blocking traffic." A slight lie, but the cars were still moving slowly. "He's speaking. Loudly. About a house. If he's arrested, the headline is going to read, 'City Jails Man for Announcing House Sale.' I'm confident my lawyer would enjoy that." Rodriguez stepped in. "Davis, look. He's right. The noise complaint is weak. The traffic is moving. There's no legal basis here right now. We need something concrete." Davis stared at the perfectly legal, entirely absurd scene before him, then at Brenda's house down the street, whose blinds were now firmly closed. He sighed, the sound of bureaucratic defeat. "Fine," Davis grumbled, walking back to his car. "But if we get another call, especially for public nuisance or obstructing traffic, we'll be back. And Mr. O'Malley," he called out to Percy, "try to announce in a less aggressive manner." "I shall endeavor to be more mellow," Percy boomed in reply, then whispered conspiratorially to me. "A most intriguing interaction, Master Maxwell. The state fears the unvarnished truth." As the police cars retreated, I high-fived Percy. We had won the first battle. I looked down the street at Brenda's darkened house. I knew this was a long game, and I had just played my first card, the nuclear option. My house still needed to sell, and now I had a $500 a week commitment to a man whose vocal cords were a weapon of mass communication. In the real world of selling a house, drama always yields to drudgery. The chaos of the town crier was exhilarating, But the post-inspection report brought me crashing back to earth. The buyer's lender needed a mandatory repair done immediately. A main bathroom faucet was leaking. "It's minor, Leo," my realtor assured me. "Just a cartridge replacement. Any plumber can do it in an hour." She clearly didn't live in Hillcrest. I called 3 contractors. 2 were booked solid for 6 weeks. The third, a guy named Gus, was somehow available immediately. That should have been my first warning. Gus showed up late in a rusted pickup truck that had a bumper sticker saying, "My other car is still broken." He was perpetually chewing gum with his mouth open and looked like he viewed manual labor as a profound personal insult. "So you're the town Crier guy," Gus grunted, wiping a hand across his forehead and leaving a smudge of grime. He didn't even bother to introduce himself. "I am," I confirmed, trying to herd him toward the bathroom. "Saw you on the neighborhood Facebook page," he said, following slowly. "The aggravated nuisance thread has like 500 comments. Look, I can fix your faucet. It's a sale condition, I get it. But you gotta realize, you got a lot of water pressure here. Like, town Crier level water pressure." "It's a leaky faucet, Gus. It's a cartridge." Sure, he scoffed, leaning against the doorframe. "It's always just a cartridge until you open the wall and find out the pipes are all sentient, and they don't want you to move. They've formed an emotional bond with the sheetrock. Happened to a guy in '08. Took us a month to negotiate peace." "I'm selling the house next week, Gus. I don't have time for sentient pipe negotiations." He finally entered the bathroom, which was gleaming white and utterly pristine. He promptly set his oily toolbox on the bath mat. He spent the next hour just examining the faucet, occasionally tapping it with a wrench like a skeptical paleontologist. "Well?" I prompted, standing in the doorway. "Verdict?" "Yeah, it's a big job," he finally declared. "Could be a week. Could be a full pipe replacement, maybe a new boiler. I'm thinking 4, maybe 5 grand. My jaw nearly hit the floor tile. 4 grand for a sink faucet? "Bless your heart," Gus sighed, looking at me with profound pity. "It's never just a cartridge. It's an ecosystem of corrosion and regret. Also, I gotta get special tools to work on high-pressure systems like this. Like tools you can only get on a Tuesday, during a full moon, from a guy named Sketchy Pete." I stared at him. "I'll give you $500 cash right now if you fix it today, and you don't say the word sentient or ecosystem again." That got his attention. "Make it 700 and a cup of decent coffee, and we got a deal." We shook hands, and he finally began the work with a surprising burst of effort. He was actually quite fast when he wanted to be, muttering under his breath about the inefficiency of modern plumbing. The problem, however, was the timing. The town Crier, Percy, was locked in for 5 p.m., and Gus was still elbow-deep in the undersink cabinet at 4:58 p.m. At 5 o'clock p.m., I heard the distant, unmistakable clang of the brass bell. Gus's head snapped up from beneath the sink. "Oh no, is that him?" "That is the sound of aggressive real estate marketing," I confirmed. Hear ye, let the truth be told to all who pass this artery of commerce. The master bathroom is a sanctuary, complete with a newly repaired..." The sheer volume of the bellow, amplified by the tiled bathroom walls, caused the wrench Gus was using to slip. It hit the porcelain of the sink with a sickening clack. Gus recoiled, nearly bumping his head. "Oh, for the love of..." Gus yelled, scrambling out from under the sink. He looked genuinely shaken. "Is he doing the house's tax history today? I almost lost a finger. That guy's good, though. Really good projection. Does he use a diaphragm, or is that all throat?" I was trying not to laugh. "He uses the full theater of human history, Gus. Just focus on the pipe. The roof is new, the HVAC is modern, and the price remains, for this fleeting moment, $875,000, "Oh yes!" Gus sighed, shaking his head. "Still 875K. Man, I'd announce it myself for a 10% cut. Less stress than plumbing." He went back under the sink, but now he was humming along with Percy's cadence. The contrast of the town crier's medieval announcement and the grumbling contractor's repairs was surreal. The chaos of the town crier, coupled with Gus's lack of efficiency, meant the 1-hour job bled into 2 full days. I ended up paying Gus $1,200 just to get him out of my house before he caused more damage, or started harmonizing with Percy. But the faucet was fixed, the inspection condition was met, and the public was now absolutely certain that 412 Spruce Avenue had an incredible stainless steel appliance package, and possibly the loudest bathroom on the East Coast. The town crier was no longer a secret. After 4 days, Percy's 5 p.m. performance had become an event. People were actively driving through the neighborhood at 5 o'clock to witness the absurdity. My realtor was ecstatic, even if she had to keep explaining to potential buyers why the advertising was so aggressive. The HOA, naturally, was apoplectic. It started, as all good suburban feuds do, with a letter. A formal, embossed, triple-certified letter from the legal firm of Smythe, Billings, and Wasp. I swear the HOA's letterhead was embossed, smelling faintly of old money and petty tyranny. They hired a full legal firm to argue over a guy in knee breeches. I was officially in a legal cage match with suburbia. The letter was a masterpiece of legal overkill, demanding the town crier cease immediately, citing intentional infliction of emotional distress, aggravated nuisance, and my personal favorite, conscious subversion of community standards. They demanded $10,000 in damages for the collective anxiety they claimed Percy had caused. I immediately called my friend Maya, a young, brilliant public interest lawyer who usually fought oil companies but secretly loved petty drama. She met me at a neutral location, a dive bar 10 miles outside Hillcrest, and immediately started cackling when she read the document. "This is amazing, Leo," she said, practically hugging the cease and desist. "Aggravated nuisance? They sound like they're charging him with a felony." "They're paying a firm thousands of dollars to shut up a guy with a bell, Maya. I need you to make them look as stupid as possible." "Look at the foundation of the case," Maya said, tapping the document. "They banned commercial signage on private land." Fine. Percy is a person on a public sidewalk exercising protected speech. The Supreme Court has ruled extensively on this. The city solicitor would laugh them out of court. They're trying to bully you with billable hours. "So we can keep him?" I asked, already picturing Percy's triumphant bellow. "Not only can we keep him," Maya said, her eyes gleaming, "we should make him louder. Tell him to start reciting the Declaration of Independence before the price. It's camouflage. It turns a commercial announcement into a patriotic display. Now, they're not just suing me, they're suing Thomas Jefferson." I loved this woman. Maya drafted a blistering reply, citing case law from 1957 about pamphlet distribution and a footnote from 1982 about public assembly. It was magnificent. The core message: my client is legally untouchable. Go bother a real criminal. Meanwhile, the viral video was blowing up. Someone had spliced Percy's bellowing with a Baroque music track and added captions like, "Realtors hate this one trick." The comments were a beautiful split, half praising my genius, half demanding I be deported for ruining the neighborhood aesthetic. On the 7th day of the cry, authority returned. This time, it wasn't just Davis and Rodriguez. They had the captain. Captain Sterling, a towering man with the weary but non-committal air of high management. The 3 of them stood on the sidewalk watching Percy prepare for his 5 p.m. performance. Mr. Maxwell, Captain Sterling began, cutting straight to the chase. We're not here about noise anymore. Your lawyer's letter was noted. We are now here because this has become a public safety issue. People are stopping in the middle of the street to film him. It's traffic congestion. You need to control your performer. Captain, with respect, I said, putting my hands up in a gesture of innocence. I'm thrilled people are interested in my property. I'll happily tell him to move further down the block, away from the immediate intersection, to encourage flow. But I can't restrict his movement on a public easement. And if people are stopping, maybe they should buy the house. Just then, Percy rang his bell, a pre-show clang that made the captain jump slightly. Percy launched into his patriotic preamble. Percy, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, including the right to own a 4-bed, 2-bath residence at 412 Spruce Avenue. Officer Rodriguez leaned in toward the captain, speaking quietly. Sir, his legal counsel is arguing First Amendment, and he's now weaving in constitutional language. He's technically just selling a house very, very dramatically. Captain Sterling let out a breath that sounded like a tire deflating. He looked at the chaos, the slow-moving traffic, the HOA's surveillance cameras pointed at us, and Percy's feathered cap dancing in the breeze. Fine, the captain conceded. He walked back to his car, then stopped. He pulled out his ticket book. He wrote out a single, small citation, then handed it to me. That, he stated firmly, is a $50 ticket for littering, for that stray pamphlet your friend dropped on the curb yesterday. I took the ticket, smiling broadly. Understood, Captain. I'll pay it immediately. That, sir, is simply the cost of doing business. We appreciate your tireless service. I paid the $50 instantly online. I had just won a public safety and constitutional law showdown for the price of a small violation. The house hadn't sold yet, but I had successfully driven the HOA to the brink of a nervous breakdown. I was the champion of absurd, noisy freedom, and Brenda was losing it. The legal battle only emboldened Percy. He started wearing his brass bell like a championship belt. The HOA, led by Brenda, was furious, silent, and plotting. On the 10th day of the Crier's residency, they finally launched their counterattack. At 4:50 p.m., I looked out my window and saw a sight so perfectly suburban, it was chilling. Brenda and 6 other key HOA members had organized a silent protest. They stood in a perfectly spaced diagonal line on the sidewalk, holding anti-sign signs. They weren't yelling, they were simply there. The signs read, "Silence is golden. Stop the racket." And my favorite, "Our ocular harmony demands reparations." The worst part? They were all wearing identical, freshly pressed beige tracksuits. It was a beige, silent wall of middle-aged passive aggression. When Percy arrived on his route at 5:00 p.m., he stopped dead. He saw the blockade, the beige tracksuits, the silent judgment. I watched from my window, expecting him to be flustered. Instead, his eyes lit up. He rang the bell, and the sound was not just loud, it was joyous. He spotted the opposition and took it as his cue for the most emotionally charged performance of his career. Percy. And thus, the tyrants of traffic and the enemies of enumeration do gather. They stand as a monolith against the flow of capital and the freedom to choose a better school district. But my voice shall not be silenced. For liberty, for justice, and for the unparalleled opportunity at 412 Spruce Avenue. The neighbors just stood there, silently holding their signs, looking profoundly uncomfortable. It was a perfect piece of performance art. The loud, flamboyant history enthusiast versus the beige, silent conformity. The traffic was backed up worse than ever, slowing down not just for the spectacle, but also for Brenda's silent, beige protest. Then, mid-bellow, a sleek, expensive, obsidian black SUV, the kind that costs more than my annual salary, pulled up right next to the blockade. Percy was midway through extolling the virtues of the primary bedroom closet space. A sanctuary of apparel, a Goliath of garments. Oh yees! The driver, a sharply dressed woman with sunglasses and a massive gold watch, rolled down her window. Vanessa, yelling over Percy's voice. Oh yes, how many bedrooms did the man say? I quickly rushed off my porch and onto the sidewalk, trying to look professional while Percy was ringing his bell like a maniac behind me. 4, ma'am. It's 4 bedrooms. It's Leo Maxwell, the owner. The Crier is a bit much, I know, but… Vanessa. Nonsense. He's brilliant. That's why I'm here. I saw the video. Anyone with this much commitment to passive-aggressive advertising must have a spectacular kitchen. I want it. I was stunned. You're serious? Deadly serious, she said, pulling off her sunglasses. Her eyes were laser-focused. The drama alone is worth the price. I own a chain of high-end wedding venues. We need drama. I'll take it. Full asking price. Contingent on 2 things. 1, the walkthrough is right now, and 2, the Crier is included in the closing costs. I want the whole neighborhood to know I bought the house that broke the HOA. Brenda, horrified, finally broke her silence. She stepped forward, shaking her "Stop the Racket" sign. Ma'am, this man is in violation of community standards. Vanessa cut her off instantly, looking Brenda up and down, taking in the matching beige tracksuits. Darling, Vanessa drawled, with the kind of confidence that could bankrupt nations. I'm buying this house because of the chaos. I detest quiet rules. I need a place that can handle a bit of anarchy. Is your name Brenda? I'll send you a nice bottle of wine once the papers are signed. Now, Leo, show me the kitchen. Brenda actually sputtered. The beige blockade dissolved into confusion and muttered outrage. I led Vanessa through the house. She didn't look at the foundation or the plumbing. She focused on the walk-in closet, the size of the deck, and yes, the stainless steel appliances Percy had so eloquently detailed. Within 20 minutes, she shook my hand. Done. My team will have a cash offer to your realtor by sundown, and make sure the Crier is available for the closing ceremony. He's my victory announcement. Leo Maxwell's town Crier real estate gambit was over. The house was sold, not in spite of the town Crier, but because of him. I had defeated the forces of ocular harmony with sheer, unapologetic, brass-belled absurdity. The closing was quick, efficient, and deeply satisfying. Vanessa was exactly who she appeared to be. A whirlwind of theatrical, high-end commerce. She even brought Percy to the title company's office. He stood in the corner in his full regalia, silently polishing his bell. I met him outside the office, the paperwork signed, the money transferred. The house was officially Vanessa's. Percy, my friend, my savior, my beloved nuisance, I said, shaking his hand firmly. We did it. The house is sold. Your service is complete. You are, quite simply, the greatest real estate advertising tool in American history. Percy looked genuinely touched. His theatricality shifted from boisterous to melancholy. Master Maxwell, he said, clutching my hand with both of his, you have been a patron of pure, unadulterated public discourse, a true pioneer. My bell shall remain polished, ever ready to serve the next victim of tyrannical signage." He winked. "Perhaps a post-closing announcement is in order? A brief summary of the successful transaction?" "No, Percy," I laughed. "It's time for silence. For both of us. Go home, rest your vocal cords, and maybe look into voice acting lessons. You'll be a legend." I handed him a substantial bonus check, watching his eyes widen. He rang his bell one final, celebratory time, and then theatrically strode off down the street, ready for his next great cry. I loaded the last of my boxes into my moving van. I was free. I escaped the HOA, the signs, the fines, and the sound. I got to my new place, unpacked my boxes, and listened to the blessed silence of a quiet, non-HOA-controlled street. It was glorious. 2 days later, I checked the neighborhood Facebook page one last time, purely out of morbid curiosity. Brenda had posted a photo. It was a formal, beige sign, tasteful, bronze frame, subtle, standing in the yard of 412 Spruce Avenue. It was brand new, and it read, "The town Crier's schedule is here." The caption from Brenda simply read, "Welcome to Hillcrest, Vanessa. We look forward to community. Engagement. The new schedule is Tuesdays and Fridays at 4:30 p.m. I sighed, opened a new bottle of bourbon, and realized some battles are never truly won. They just get hilariously inherited. I raised my glass to the ghosts of Hillcrest, to the sound of an echoing bell 1,000 miles away, and knew I'd left a legacy. Oyez.